Ancient Egypt was known as a land full of secrets. No other civilization has been able to so successfully capture the imagination of both academics and the general public. There's a lot of mysteries surrounding its beginnings, its religion, and its massive architecture, which consists of gigantic temples, pyramids, and the Sphinx. The Egyptian pyramids are the most well-known of all the ancient monuments. In fact, they are the only one of the original 7 wonders of the ancient world that still stands. Hello friends, welcome back to our channel The Unknown Fact. Today we will talk about the tomb of the Egyptian god Osiris that scientists just found next to the river Nile. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on the amazing mysteries of science. Let's begin. The seeds of civilization were initially seeded along the Nile's banks, just as life emerged from the waters. The Great Nile, which flows north from the heart of Africa to the Mediterranean Sea, fueled the pharaonic kingdom's expansion. People, animals, and plants were drawn to the banks of the long, narrow floodplain. Nomadic hunters settled in the valley during pre-dynastic times and began to produce crops to supplement their food source. The annual flooding of the river, viewed as a gift from the god, deposited nutrient-rich silt across the land, creating excellent conditions for growing wheat, flax, and other crops. This budding society's first collective endeavor was the construction of irrigation canals for agricultural purposes. The sun was a major deity whose journey across the sky symbolized the eternal cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The pharaohs were regarded as gods, divine representatives on earth who maintained the continuity of life through rites. They were immortal after death, joining the gods in the afterlife. The Egyptians also thought that the body and soul were essential to human existence, both in life and after death. Their funerary traditions, like mummification and burial in tombs, were intended to help the deceased navigate the afterlife. To assure the soul's return to the body so that the departed could live happily ever after, the tombs were loaded with food, tools, domestic wares, and treasures, all the essentials of life. The iconic pyramids, shaped like the Holy Mound where the gods first appeared in the creation tale, are the most spectacular tombs. These were massive projects, the largest structures ever built. Highly experienced architects and engineers oversaw their construction. The large limestone stones were transported by paid laborers without the use of wheels, horses, or iron tools. Conscripts may have been driven by a profound conviction in their leader's divinity and a belief in immortality. Perhaps they believed that their efforts would better their chances at the last judgment in the hereafter. Egyptian archaeologists are still discovering significant findings today, and the scientific study of royal mummies is giving new information on the pharaoh's ancestors. The continuous decipherment of hieroglyphic writings and studies into peasant life are also helping to resolve many issues about the evolution of Egyptian civilization. The Egyptians were a joyful bunch who knew how to enjoy life, according to the pharaonic religion. Every civilization has its own set of myths and legends. The majority of us are acquainted with the story of ruler Arthur, who is considered to be the greatest king in British folklore, and his queen Guinevere. In a similar vein, the Egyptian mythology that surrounds Osiris is one of the most well-known stories to originate from the country of Egypt. Osiris, the ancient Egyptian god of the dead and king of the underworld, was worshipped in ancient Egypt. The tales that surround this character are intricate and varied, similar to what is found in many different religions. He was the god of immortality. He was supposed to judge the dead, only allowing those who were morally worth it into his afterlife. He was seen as a god of regeneration and rebirth, and he held several other roles that varied depending on the cult. He was the god of immortality. He was supposed to judge the dead. Only those who were morally worth it was allowed into his afterlife. It is believed that ceremonies were performed at the symbolic burial site to establish a connection between the great powers of the god of the afterlife and the pharaohs. But regardless of how he was perceived, the majority of people believed that he was one of the more powerful gods. And now, archaeologists have found an old tomb that seems to be directly modeled after the famous tomb of Osiris, which was discovered not too long ago. This discovery was made by an archaeological team from Spain and Italy working together with the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities to make the discovery. According to Egyptian folklore, this tomb can be found in the necropolis of Sheikh Abd el-Qurna. This necropolis is a burial complex that is a component of the Deir el-Bahari, also known as the Northern Monastery, which can be found on the West Bank in Thebes. Philip Viry was the one who made the initial discovery of the tomb in the year 1887. And in the 20th century, there were some rudimentary efforts to map the main structure. However, Tomb Camp 327, which you can see highlighted in red below, was never drawn. The recently discovered Osiris complex consists of a shaft that, when traversed, leads to many chambers, each of which is home to a unique collection of artifacts. In one of these locations, there is a wall relief that depicts several devils brandishing knives. This was done so that the bodies of the deceased would be protected by the sculpture. In a different room, known as the Central Vaulted Chapel, there is a sitting deity with green skin that is facing a stairway that contains a shaft that is 29.5 feet tall. The shaft provides access to a different chamber by a second shaft that extends downward for 19.6 feet into 2 other rooms. As you can see down below, it's a little bit confusing, just like a maze. The precise year that the structure was built is unknown. However, based on a comparison to other tombs that contain Osirian elements, researchers believe that the tomb complex dates back to either the 25th dynasty, 760 to 656 BC, or the 26th dynasty, 672 to 525 BC. This belief is based on the fact that the tomb complex contains Osirian elements. Osiris is the ancient Egyptian god associated with the afterlife, the underworld, and the realm of the deceased. He was typically shown as having vivid emerald green skin, a pharaoh's beard, a crown ornamented with 2 resplendent ostrich feathers, and his legs wrapped up like a mummy. In addition, his crown was typically embellished with 2 resplendent ostrich feathers. In most depictions, he is shown with a crook and a flail, both of which are symbols that correspond, respectively, to royalty in the land. The ancient Egyptians staged a passion play once a year, which told the story of Osiris's death and rebirth. This play was based on the legend of Osiris. It was believed that he drowned in the Nile, and in other stories, his brother Set, the ancient Egyptian god of storms, disorder, violence, and strangers, cut him into 14 pieces when he died. Isis, the goddess of nature and magic, took a total of 12 days to put the pieces back together, except for his phallus, which was misplaced during the process. The funerary chamber contains sculpted reliefs of demons wielding blades in various poses. Alvarez Sosa asserts that their purpose was to guard the corpses of the deceased once they had passed on to the afterlife in the book Ancient Origins. The tomb of the previously unknown Egyptian queen has been discovered by a separate team of archaeologists, and it is now believed that the queen was the wife of the pharaoh Neferfer, who reigned Egypt around 4,500 years ago. This news was also reported today. This tomb was reportedly discovered at Abu Sir, which is a large necropolis erected in the area around Cairo, the contemporary capital of Egypt. The story was made by AFP. During the 5th dynasty, multiple pyramids were constructed at this site and dedicated to several pharaohs, including Neferfer. Thanks to the inscriptions that were found on the walls of the queen's tomb, the name of the queen had been determined to be Kentakoa, according to the Egyptian antiquities minister, Mando al-Damati, who spoke with the press. Al-Damati is quoted as saying that for the first time, we have found the name of this queen who had been unknown before the finding of her tomb. This discovery will help us shed light on certain unknown features of the 5th dynasty, which along with the 4th dynasty, witnessed the construction of the first pyramids, he added. This discovery will help us shed light on certain unknown aspects of the 5th dynasty. This was not the first time that scientists found an ancient Egyptian tomb. The tomb of a previously unknown Egyptian queen was discovered by an archaeological team working at the ancient necropolis of Saqqara. Additionally, the team discovered a new hoard of more than 100 mummies, in addition to 300 coffins and other artifacts. Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, who served as the nation's previous Minister of Antiquities, stated in an interview with Live Science that we have now uncovered that her name was Neith, and she had never before been known from the historical record. It is incredible to figuratively rewrite what we know of history by adding a new queen to our records, said the historian. It is a very exciting prospect. The finds were unearthed not too far from Cairo, and they come on the heels of the recent unearthing of artifacts related to the pharaoh Teti, as well as the sarcophagus of King Ramses II's treasure. At the beginning of this year, the Egyptian authorities disclosed that a tomb belonging to a royal dignitary had been discovered at the location in question. The most recent collection of mummies almost certainly includes the skeletal remains of Tut's advisors and generals, a pyramid that experts now believe was devoted to an ancient queen who is being identified the very first time is even more intriguing. The excavations also found a network of 22 tunnels that were connected. Hawass believes that these burials date back to the New Kingdom and were conducted between 1570 and 1069 BCE, in contrast to prior findings at Saqqara, the majority of which date to the Old Kingdom or the Late Period. According to Hawass, who contributed further information, burials from the New Kingdom were not known to be frequent in the area before, therefore this is new to the site. The coffins have separate faces, each one unique, distinguishing between men and women, and are decorated with scenes from the Book of the Dead. Each face depicts a different character from the book. In addition, the deceased person's name is inscribed on each coffin, and the 4 sons of Horus, who are believed to have guarded the deceased person's organs, are depicted frequently. Since the year 2020, excavation work has been going on at Saqqara, which has led to the discovery of a lot of new artifacts. The most recent discoveries include a mummy of a woman who was wearing a mask made of solid gold, gaming pieces for an ancient game called Senet, a gigantic sarcophagus made of limestone, and a soldier who was buried with a metal axe in his hand. Apart from these 300 tombs, archaeologists from Egypt had previously discovered 110 tombs while excavating an ancient site in one of the provinces of the Nile Delta. The burials, some of which contain human bones, were discovered at an archaeological site known as Kam el Kulgan in the province of Dakalia, which is located approximately 150 kilometers northeast of Cairo. according to the ministry. According to the ministry, they consist of 68 tombs with an oval shape that dates back to the predynastic period, which lasted from 6000 BC to 3150 BC. According to the ministry, there were also 37 tombs in the shape of rectangle that dated back to an ancient time known as the Second Intermediate Period. This was the time when the Semitic people of Hyksos governed ancient Egypt. According to the Supreme Council of Antiquities, these 37 tombs were unique in both their appearance and how the deceased were laid to rest. All of those who are buried in these tombs are placed in an extended position with their heads turned toward the west and facing skyward. The Naqada, the Third Period, which lasted from approximately 3200 BC to 3000 BC, is when the last 5 tombs had an oval shape. In these graves, archaeologists discovered the skeletal remains of adults and children, as well as funerary implements and artifacts made of ceramic, according to the ministry. Egypt has a reputation for being the most mysterious place on Earth due to its many cryptic traditions and enormous pyramids. With new digging, new secrets arise. The question, where does it all end, fascinates people who are passionate about history. In addition to constructing a structure as complicated as a pyramid, the ancient Egyptians also left behind many mysteries and unsolved puzzles. Because of this, Egypt has always been a topic that people all over the world are interested in, even for folks who aren't particularly interested in history. The fact that these Egyptian puzzles remain unsolved is enough to keep them riveted to their books. Is there any other country on the planet that can compete with Egypt's extensive and varied past? From our point of view, the answer is no. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.